You're lying in bed having a bit of a sleep in. Then you hear that noise. You realise it's rubbish day and you can hear the truck coming down the road. It's the worst feeling ever. Welcome to the internet and my bin area and all its associated outside noises. Today I want to talk a little bit about waste. This is MinMax episode number 3. So here we are back in the game space again, and as you probably gathered from the intro, I want to do a little bit of talking about waste management. As I said before, this is MinMax video number 3. For those that are new to the term of min-maxing, it's a board gaming term where you have the minimum input for a maximum output. It's very capitalist, actually. Anyway, we love this in modern board games, being able to do a little bit of stuff and get a big return. And generally speaking, it's all about numbers and numbers systems. And I was going to put this video on my personal space, and then I realized this is a good example of a min-maxing problem, so I thought I'd put it here. In my suburb at the moment, and in fact right across Western Australia if I'm not mistaken, there's been a bunch of council elections being run. These are all run by the post, as in you fill out a form that comes in your mail and you vote for your councillors, and in fact there is direct election of the mayor now by the look of it, because previously the councillors got together and decided who they would like to have as a mayor. I sort of suspect that's a better way of doing it. But anyway, that's another story. So I opened my mail with my voting slip in it, and inside the voting slip, each of the people who are putting themselves forward to be a councillor has written a little spiel. And this is actually problematic in Australia because the way the Electoral Commission works is they don't have to be honest. I have no idea why that is. I know that an independent politician called Zali Steggall tried to introduce some legislation a little while ago to correct that, because I think on official election documents, candidates should have to be honest about what they're promising to do or who they actually are and what they represent. But anyway, the major parties in Australia decided they weren't interested in that, and that got just out there somewhere. So I'm reading the spiel from my 3 candidates, and all of them have the same thing. We have a 3-bin waste management system in Western Australia. 1 bin is for compostable waste, so that's your lawn clippings, garden waste, and all of your food waste, and some of the packaging that's compostable as well. Like you'll probably notice a lot of the fast food you buy in Western Australia now comes in compostable packaging. So that all goes in what we call the green bin. Then we have recyclables, which are pretty obviously the plastics that can be recycled, because not all can be recycled, and aluminium and steel. We still have tinned food in steel cans and what have you, and all of this is quite easily sorted and recycled. That goes in the yellow bin. And the 3rd bin is the red bin, which is for everything else. The non-recyclable plastics. In my case, it's like sawdust and stuff from my little workshop. I produce quite a bit of sawdusty, wood offcutsy type stuff because I like to build stuff. You've seen my table video, right? Yeah. And the way the council work it is, the green bin gets collected every week. They're 240 litres in size, and the other 2 bins get collected week about. Now, one of the things all the candidates for my ward said was they are going to maintain a large red bin. When I was young, there was an occasion in Western Australia's history where I wasn't 60 years old. Just saying. We had 1 bin, and it was the 240 litre bin. And then very quickly afterwards, I think, I can't remember, it was like 40 odd years ago at least, a recycling bin came along, and that was the yellow bin. And then the recent Labor state government decided to implement what they call FOGO, which is the food waste bin, garden clippings bin, the one with the green lid. So now we've gone from 240 litres of shit we can throw out to 3 times that. You can do the maths. So because of this, there's a bit of a movement to reduce the size of the red bin. It's not needed anymore. We've got 3 times as much capacity to remove waste from our houses. So why do we need 3 large bins? So I wrote an email and sent it to all the councillors. And 3 of them got back to me. And the other one's probably on Mars or something. I don't know. Maybe he didn't like the green nature of my email. But either way, 2 of the councillors got back to me, and thank you to them. Now, the things they raised were the cost of doing the bin swap was going to be about $1.5 million. And the tone in the emails, and I'll scroll them through here slowly so you can pause and read them if you wish, was that the state government had offered about $500,000 to do the swap over, and the council was going to have to stump up another $1.5 million in variations. Now, those people who are familiar with contracts will know that a variation is something outside an original contract where the contractor goes, I need some more money, we didn't see this happening, and they're negotiable. They totally are. There's a major highway that was built down to Bunbury in the last decade by a very large construction company, and the variations for that that contract were quite famously, let's say, contested. And when the government decided, rather than to roll over and just pay them, which is evidently what used to happen, they basically got some engineers to look at what the variations were and said, are these legitimate? And no. The very large company that was building the road was making lots of money. They were just inventing some shit. Now, I don't know that that's what's happening with our waste, but it's a very round figure, isn't it? $1.5 million. You would expect a variation to be calculated. They always have been in my history, because you want to show you're working. And maybe they haven't given me the calculated variation, but 1.5 million sounds a bit round, and it also sounds like a bit washy. The state government has come up with a policy that we need to implement the FOGO, and it is actually a cost-saving measure, but we'll get to that. And obviously councils are like, we've got to do this stuff. It's annoying, and the ratepayers are going to be upset. And sure, some of them will be, I guess, because that's the price of progress. Anyway, the 2 councillors who replied to my email pointed out the cost of the variation, and one of them, Michelle, basically said, we'll have to dispose of all the other bins, and that's going to be an expense to us, and they'll end up in landfill. Actually, no, Michelle, all of our bins are polyethylene, I think you'll find, and they can just be ground up and recycled. Polyethylene is probably the most recyclable plastic we have. In fact, when you go to maker fairs and things like that, you will find people who are making earrings and trinkets by quite simply heating up polyethylene, remolding it into something else and letting it cool down. Guitar plectrums, bits of jewellery and whatever. It's like the bins that we will remove from circulation will either be easily stored because they stack inside each other when you take the wheels off, so they don't take up a lot of space, and they are also then resources that can be used when other bins are damaged, just simply reassembling them. And because the bins get smashed and knocked around occasionally, the trucks that pick them up have a mechanical arm that gives them a pretty hard time sometimes. So they're not going to go into landfill. I believe the bins we are using, from the sound of it, are actually owned by the contractor, and the council, because of what's happening, will be expected to buy them off the owner, and that's probably part of this expense. But I'm still not convinced. All of these people, and this is a warning to anyone standing for an election, had the word sensible something or other on their election blurb. And to me, that's always, we're pandering to the lowest common denominator. When you're standing for an election, you need to work out whether you're going to be a leader that implements and educates, or a follower that just gets into power to rule. These are like two really important distinctions. It's not easy, like being part of a government body and having to please people but still do what's best for the community. When you're part of a community, you have a responsibility to everyone else. And we'll get to that, more on that later as well. So here I am back in front of the camera again. Turns out that I've, since shooting the first lot of stuff, I thought I'd ring the council and double check that I was, understanding things correctly. And I sort of was and sort of wasn't. And then I reversed two numbers because I'm a bit dyslexic, hey. So 7.5 million and 5.7 million are two very different numbers. Anyway, so I've sat down and done my working again. Hence, I've had to reset up. But here's what we have. I Googled Bayswater City Council and found out there were 32,167 households, and the average family size in Bayswater is 2.3, as in 2.3 people. Now maybe the 0.3 is a rescue greyhound or something. So most households in Bayswater are pretty small, and that's not surprising. We're a reasonably, by world standards, wealthy suburb in a first world nation, so we have a lot of empty rooms, really. But when I spoke to the council, that doesn't equate to 32,000 bins. The council has about 29,000 bins out there, and that's because there are some shared dwellings, like blocks of units and things that have like one bin between 2 or 3 units, and probably some retail outlets and things are probably part of the number of ratepayers in the council precinct as well. Anyway, if we allow that people fill their bins about halfway or 2/3 or something like that, which when you think about it, probably just means we should get smaller bins, but let's go with that anyway. So about a half full bin is, a bit over half full is about 40 kilos. So we'll do that. So 29,000 by 40 kilos by 26 weeks, because the red bin is collected every fortnight, assuming you put it out every fortnight, is 30,000 tonnes of landfill. If we did the same thing with the 140 litre smaller bin, that's only 18,000 tonnes of landfill, a saving of 12,000 tonnes. Now, when I rang around and did a bit of searching on the web, I found that the cost to dispose landfill waste for me is $170 a tonne, and that surprised me. I've taken trailer loads of waste over Weybridge before, but it's been a few years and I don't think it was that expensive now, so that's actually gone up a bit, and in fact the cost is expected to go up again. Anyway, that cost savings would, to me, would be just over $3 million, $3,060,000. So your $1.5 million savings you're talking about, councillors or councillor candidates, that's pretty insignificant, really. And let's say I'm out by a factor of 2 because the council only gets charged half its disposal rate that the regular public does, and I'd be really surprised if that was the case. I mean, I expect they get a discount for bulk, but if I was a company doing business with larger bodies, there would be rates, but 50%. But even at 50%, we're sort of at a break-even point. And if it was less than that, like within a year or so, this $1.5 million that's being saved by not becoming waste responsible, that's just gone. The other thing I found out was that the expense to the council from the contractor for the release of the contract many of those expenses will fall due anyway at the end of the contract. So I don't know. I have this funny feeling that in privatising some areas of government services is like a very large false economy, and probably councils should just buy themselves some rubbish trucks, employ some staff, and manage it themselves so these sort of complications don't occur. Because I don't imagine the savings you get from a contractor, if indeed you get one, outweigh the inconvenience if something changes and you need a variation. Anyway, there's my correction done. The other thing that was mentioned on the email I got from the council was a link, which I'll put below, where you can actually go to a government page and see a graph of where all of our waste goes. And something that really impressed me that I wasn't aware of is that like 75% of the stuff that goes in the recycling bin is actually reclaimed. So obviously people accidentally put the wrong stuff in the recycling bin. Plastics are hard to understand. Polyethylenes and what have you, beautiful to recycle. PVCs, not so much. And there's a whole bunch of stuff in between. So it's understandable that people will dump like waxy plastics and stuff, waxy cardboards and things like that in there that probably shouldn't be in there. And this all has to be sorted. And I was under the impression that a lot of this just went into the landfill as well. But no, 70-something% of it, you can see it here, gets reclaimed and reused. And that is wonderful. It shows that what the government is trying to implement is like getting some traction and working. The other thing the council mentioned in their email to me was the cost of removing the recycling and the FOGO, that's the green bin waste, which is food waste and garden waste, is less than half the cost of the landfill waste. So not only are we reducing waste by having a smaller red bin, we're also making things a lot cheaper. I am totally just ignoring the $1.5 million changeover cost, because within a year or two, that will just be absorbed. I have no idea what the council pay for their waste management, but even if it was half the cost that I calculated, that $1.5 million that they're complaining about having to spend, that would be gone very quickly. And as the council email to me says, giving people a smaller bin makes them think about the waste they're generating and helps them generate less. And how is that not a very good thing? Anyway, that's a bit of min-maxing with regard to council waste. There's a bunch of board games here that do that. Normally I talk about a board game on my board gaming channel, but today I'm talking about council waste. If you're interested in board games, then, well, subscribe and have a look. And if you're not, no worries. I also have a personal channel which has all sorts of other things in it. There's a video series on the new Bayswater Station, which is going to be fabulous. It's probably been a pain in the ass for a lot of people who've been affected by its construction, but it's a monstrous project. I'll link the playlist to that below if you're also interested. And given that the council elections have finished, there's not very much people who watch this video and go, oh, I didn't understand that, because neither did I until I looked at it. There's not much you can do, but the mayor of the council has resigned at a really awkward time and is going to cause a by-election, which again is going to cost the council money. So much for saving our ratepayers' dollars. And I would encourage any one of you to look properly at what's being promoted by our councillors and do vote, do fill out the form, because we want our council team to lead us, not follow us.